Hey, shout out, folks. This is the old Rucker, a.k.a. Bob from shoutoutfromthepit.com. Kind of excited today with the show that we're going to have. Our newest platform here is reaching out just, beyond people that are dealing with challenges. Our guest today actually helps people with challenges in a unique way. And so we'll get into that. But first, I'd like to introduce my dear friend, Dianne. She's a great friend and one who is passionate about her recovery and yours. Dianne?
Hi, folks. I'm Dianne.
And our featured guest, the judge.
Hey, folks. Good to meet everybody. Good to see everybody.
So we're going to be talking in this show about Sobriety Court. And before we even get there, there's a couple things I want to do. One is I want to thank you both for coming out today. I know you have extremely busy schedules. So, to be able to take a break and come here into our humble studio really blesses me, and I thank you for that. And it is kind of funny. I was thinking about this earlier as I was preparing for the show. To be able to sit with one as honored and esteemed as yourself in this setting is so contrast to where we stood before a judge many years ago. And, when some of us, not everybody, but many of us grow up with this feeling like if you're dealing with law enforcement, you're in trouble. If you're going to court, you're in trouble, And so right away, the judge is one to not necessarily be respected as a human, but feared as an authority. And I have obviously learned in recovery and the time that we've spent together here recently that that's not always the case. And I do want to give an off the show shout out to Judge Weckl. He passed a couple years ago, but the judge was somebody when I was growing up that I saw in court both as a older juvenile and then as a young adult. And, he gave me a break, but I didn't see it as a break. I saw it as I got over, But what he did is he planted seeds, and the things that that I had to do later on in life as I matured, because I don't expect teenagers and young adults to get it. We just don't. But as I got older, and of course I got married, had a family, and then, became responsible because of my walk in this recovery journey, I started looking back at the people that had an influence on my life. And Judge Weckl was definitely one of those persons. And I don't think I think the Lord just laid it on my brain, So rest in peace, Judge Weckl, and thanks for all you've done for lots of folks like this wayward youth. So that said, I did a little novice journalism research here using the infamous Google platform. And I found a couple of things that I thought were interesting that I think would be a good way to segue, into the show. So what I read was, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, about 37 people die in drunk driving crashes every day. In 2022, over 13,000 people died in alcohol-impaired driving traffic deaths. In 2017, Arkansas ranked 7th in capita. In 2023, Arkansas didn't even make the top 10. Now, I just found this recently after our last chat, and I couldn't help thinking if it has something or a lot to do with the direction that the courts have gone, and hence Sobriety Court. And before we get into that, there was a couple of things I saw here that sobriety courts are popping up around the nation more and more frequently. I'd never even heard of it until Dianne, you introduced me to the judge and we learned these things. What I do know, across the states, charges range from misdemeanors to felony offenses. Penalties for impaired driving can include driver's license revocation, fines, and jail time. A first-time offense can cost the driver up to $10,000 in fines and legal fees. Then there's the shame game, the interlock, a breath test device to start the vehicle, your name in the paper, appearing before the judge, and excuses for lapse in judgment to the family, friends, employers. But yet we do it. Every day people do it, and it just blows my mind. So before we get started on this subject, I was wondering if we could chat a little bit about the judge.
Oh, okay.
I'm just curious, who you are, where you came from. Tell us who you are.
Grew up here in Pulaski County. Original intent was to be a doctor. Then went to court one day with my father, who was the judge that preceded me, and was enthralled when he was cross-examining someone and actually caught him in a lie. I'd never seen that before. And I was so curious about that I decided that law would be actually a fun career. I'd grown up in it, clerking with my dad's law firm. And so instead, when I saw that, I decided doctor's not for me. And plus, I wrote my high school principal and told him I'd considered going to med school. And he promptly wrote back, your chemistry grades were terrible, you were bad in math, but you could do a really good book report. Forget medicine, don't even try. And so that was Father Triview. And so I thought, well, it looks like I'm on to law school.
Okay. And I'm just curious now, law school, did you have a particular area in mind that you wanted to study or practice?
No, at that particular time, I did not. I was very fortunate because in high school, I clerked at my father's law firm and same way in college. And so it gave me a breadth of areas in the law that would be interesting. I knew I wanted to do trial work. I didn't know particularly, Bob, which area of the trial work, whether it be divorce, litigation, criminal cases, whatever. And so I was open to anything. I just wanted to get in front of in a courtroom and try cases. It just was thrilling. You knew everything that was going on. It was exciting. It was a lot of pressure, but it was also very exciting.
Did you have a mentor out there? Your dad, of course.
I was very fortunate. My father, yes. He was the senior partner in our law firm. And so he would assign me different partners to mentor with. And so that was a great education. But the problem with it is when I first started going to court, he would call the judges and he would say, the judge is coming to court with over there, please jack him around. So I'd come into a court and confront an angry judge and had no idea why. But my father's thought process was that would make me quick on my feet. Unfortunately, it resulted in a lot of humiliating experiences in a courtroom, but I could understand what he did. And then he started to assign me to trial lawyers that really knew what they were doing, really appreciated the nuances, talking to a jury or talking to a judge. And so that really helped quite a bit.
I think that was rather wisdomful on your dad's behalf.
I hate to admit it, I think it was.
Well, I don't want to break anonymity here, but your dad has a great following. I've actually met a lot of people that know him. And the first thing that people say about you is generally because of what you've done after your name is spoken. And so I mentioned, that we're going to be doing this show with a lot of folks in the community that I'm involved with extracurricularly, and very positive. I mean, that makes me feel good, you know.
Good. That's something you always want to hear as a judge. You always want to, if ever somebody finds out and they say, oh, I appeared in front of you, my first question always is, was I fair? Because I want to come across as fair. Did I give you a chance to tell me your side? Did I listen? Did I act concerned? Not some arrogant somebody that throws on a robe and acts like they know everything. That's not justice. Judge Winkle presented that to you and gave you an opportunity because he cared enough for what he saw to hope that in some instance, whatever that instance may be, he could change your life. So praise God that you adopted that and now accept that and look back on it like we do our favorite teachers and think of a teacher that had a big influence in our life or a friend. And so that's always the hope.
It's funny because I don't know, obviously I don't know the law, and that's why we hire attorneys and hope that they would represent us well in law, in the courts. But when we go before a judge, it is always so intimidating because there's so much, let's face it, there's a lot of power on the other side of that bench. And we're thinking always, well, I hope it rolls in our favor. Whereas in somebody in your capacity is thinking, I need to do what's fair here. You don't mind me digressing. One of the greatest stories that come to mind is Solomon.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I think about the wisdom that one needs to have in that capacity. And then, of course, there's the two prostitutes that come before him with the baby, right? And as you're reading it, maybe for the first time, you're wondering, how is this going to play out? We know the mother deserves to have her child, but we don't know if that's truly the mother. And to come up with something so profound to say, you know what, I got an idea. We're just going to cut the baby in half. You each get a half. And we're good to go. Case closed. I'm going to be able to get to lunch on time. And then, the results of that. The one prostitute saying, no, let her keep the baby where the other one's fine. Let's cut the baby in half. And he just knew right then. It was so obvious.
Right.
God bless those as yourself that sit on that side of the bench and have to try cases. And you have to seek wisdom. You have to know the law. My gosh, and those books are thick. I've seen Perry Mason. Those are thick books.
That's right. That's great.
Wow. Okay, so Dad's kind of helped groom you.
Yes.
his staff or his partners have helped groom you, and then you branch out on your own. You're an attorney. What led you to think, I think I want to take this another step and become a judge?
I admired what he had done. He was very compassionate. I'd been in front of judges before, some of them who were callous, some of them who, like you said, unfortunately, very few, thankfully, that seemed to want to go back on the golf course and didn't spend the time to listen to people, whereas he did. He had a very big heart. And when I became judge, I'll never forget, we were talking about it, and he told me, he says, don't forget, every one of those that appear in front of you are a child of Jesus. He would have got on the cross as quickly for them as he would for you. Look at him that way. And so it was very enlightening because, like you said earlier, Bob, that robe can unfortunately give us a false sense of authority, a false sense of power, which can be abused. And that's not what should be done. That's not justice. Justice is fairness, equal, no matter who you are. And that it's always stayed with me. And another good friend, judge, also had told me before he takes the bench, at the time, he would stop and pray. Make me the judge you think I should be, and not the judge I think I should be. And so I do the same thing.
That is so refreshing to hear in this era, where, the arguments of taking the 10 Commandments out of the courtrooms, the courthouses. To hear you say those things, it makes me feel good. And I'll tell you, we've all kind of read certain things like, what is it? I think it's Proverbs 26, basically he who counsels with a fool counsels with himself. And so where do we get our higher authority from? What motivates us? What moves us? In a lot of cases, persons hit a certain level and there's really not a lot of accountability there. I have peers, I'm former military. I have peers that have reached a certain position, and the higher you go, the less accountability there really is. And some of these folks, they changed. And I wouldn't say it was really good. Don't need to elaborate, but I could tell that accountability was so key, and the lack of it. He who counsels with himself counsels with a fool. And I would say some of those careers were ended because they lacked that accountability. So it's refreshing to hear you say that, Judge.
Oh, thank you. Hopefully the proof is in the pudding. The truth is what people say, not what I say, but I believe,
Well, I think the proof is in the pudding, and we're going to kind of get there in a little bit, kind of leading the witness here. Okay. So I'm just curious. You started Sobriety Court, and if you could just share with me the history behind what you knew, how it started. We'll start off with those questions there.
Oh, sure. It was in 2010. I'd been invited to sit as special for a judge in Batesville who happened to be a good friend of mine. And I'd gone up there because he had a conflict, and we'd finished the case. And he said, would you mind to hang around to see my, what's called at the time, DWI court? And I said, well, what is that? And he said, well, it's a special type of court. We're just now starting. I'm going to be the first in Arkansas, and I've been exposed to it. I've been studying it, and I want you to see what you think. And I kind of wanted to head back to Little Rock, and so I said, well, sure, I'll have lunch with you. Why not? I'll sit in on it. And it was mind-boggling. I was blown away by it, primarily because of the compassion that he had for his people that appeared in front of him. Bob, everybody came in, and they sat at a big table, like we do, Diane. Sat at a big table. The judge on one end, the defendant sat right next to him. And so next to him would be, like on our team, a police officer, a prosecutor, a public defender, 2 treatment specialists, and a probation officer. And they were all getting together. And so this person, the charged person, would come in, and they'd sit next to the judge. And the judge would look at him and say, how are you doing today? Thank you for coming to court. I appreciate the fact that you showed up. It's a big step for you. We're in phase 1, which is the hardest phase. And so thank you for coming and showing up for court today. I want to find out how are you doing it coming along in your sobriety. Well, I'm sitting there watching this, and the reaction of the defendant, you could tell they were just shocked that this judge or this police officer or a peer representative like Dianne is on our court was taking the time to really find out about them, because it's too easy, like you were suggesting earlier, Bob, to come in front of a judge and you're concerned, you're worried, is he going to be fair or so? But more importantly, to be judged on the fact that I committed a crime. It'd be irresponsible as a judge to say, this is who you are from now on. We never should be known by the crimes that we've committed. It's how we grow from that or what we learn from it, like the judge taught you. Not to be stuck in the past, but to move forward. And this is what he was doing with this particular defendant. And I couldn't believe it. I thought, this is beautiful. This is justice. Set aside the fact that they've been charged with DWI. What are we going to do with them now so they don't become a statistic like you're reading on the National Statistics Highway that you were talking about, all those statistics. If you break those statistics down even further, the significant cause of the deaths are those by the people we treat in our court, the serious DWI drinkers, those that in DWI second that blew up above a 0.16 or higher, or like we treat too, DWI thirds. They cause the majority of the serious accidents in the country. That's who our court targets. And so this is who this person was. And this judge is, of course, holding them accountable because they're facing a year in jail if they don't complete the program, but also encouraging them to complete the program, just like the bureau specialist is, the probation officer. I hate to use the term rah-rah, but it's kind of like a rah-rah team because everybody talks to the defendant saying, we hope you succeed. We have the tools. Come along with us. We know what you've been charged with. We can take care of that. How are we going to grow from it? Let us learn about you so you can help us, help you avoid that ever again. I couldn't believe it. I came back. I grabbed my case coordinator at the time, and I told him, I said, and the prosecutor, Steve Cobb, I said, I've just seen something we've got to do. And Steve just jumped right on it. He goes, that sounds great. Because in the court system, you deal a lot with guilty or not guilty in criminal cases, and you never see what happens after that. That's the frustrating thing about being a judge. Judge Winkle responded in a manner towards you, obviously helped you grow, and you've always stayed with that. Well, it's rare that a judge hears that. What happened to somebody that you sentence or provide an opportunity for? Rarely do they come back. I've gotten some letters, don't get me wrong. It's very heartwarming when somebody responds in a positive manner. Judge, you changed my life because of this. And I'm thinking, I didn't. He did. He just used me as an instrument, But it's very rewarding when you finally hear that. And here this person was right in front of them. Well, so we started our court. We had real intensive training. We still go to intensive training every year. We got our team, all together and began it. And we just jumped on it, to be honest with you. So let's just do it and see how it goes. And one of our first graduates, and I think I shared this with you when we met, he was 58 years old. He graduated our program. He had started drinking when he was 12. And when he started our program, it was the first time he had been sober for an entire year of his life. He graduated at 57 years old. He started drinking when he was 12 and drank every day. He told me, I never missed a day, and I served 3 terms in prison and never missed a day drinking in prison. This was the first time he was actually sober for a year. It made my day. And a few years later I'd probably say 5 or 6, I was in northern Arkansas in a town, and somebody came up behind me and grabbed me. And I thought, oh, this is bad. This isn't going to be good because I'm in a town, I don't know anybody. And it was him.
Oh.
And he said, aren't you judge? I said, yeah, sure enough. And he says, I was one of the first graduates of your sobriety court. I said, yeah, I remember you. And I said, how are you doing? He said, I'm still sober. I haven't had a drink. I'm leading a men's study up here. And it's great. Sobriety is great. Like Dianne always says, sobriety is great. It just made my day.
You had said a couple things that we really harp on in recovery. Dianne and I meet with some of the, not all of them have made it to court. Some of them, actually come into recovery because they've hit bottom, so to speak. And we always treat them with dignity and respect at our level. We don't chastise them. We're strong, we're firm, and we have to be. Are you in a fight for your life? What are you willing to do? Those kinds of things. So again, it's refreshing to hear that kind of delivery from the other side of the bench as well. I have I found the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, 27 March 2017, included some of your thoughts. And one of the quotes, I look forward to, from you, Judge, I look forward to this court every time I hold it. It's just wonderful seeing these people thrive, their lives change dramatically. And you just gave us an example of that. Do you want to add some more insight to that quote?
It's still that way every day. When I go to court, it's one of the courts I look forward to more than anything else because I've got a committed team like Dianne here, who's with me, who showed up we always argue back and forth, about 4 years ago. Yeah. She had called me and said, I understand that you've got a DWI court. And I said, yeah. She said, I'd like to come sit in on it. Well, she'll tell you I keep a chair open by me on the bench so anybody can come up, sit up there and listen to what's going on, because a lot of time, because of the noise, it's hard to hear what actually is happening. So we sat together and discussed the different cases that appeared in front of me, and she had these great ideas that fit in with what we were learning regarding recovery, like you've talked about in your podcasts. it fit perfectly what we were learning when we'd go to these intensive trainings, regarding hope, the ability to actually overcome something, rewarding good behavior, punishing bad behavior, not in a very negative manner, because we've learned through studies that jail is only effective for 5 days. After that, it's not effective at all. So me committing somebody, particularly an alcoholic, to jail makes no sense whatsoever. They're struggling, whether it be an alcoholic or addiction, whatever it may be. To put them in jail is ridiculous. That's not treatment. Treatment's not jail. We have to come up with a better way. So we do by intensive treatment, probation, that kind of stuff. But getting back to your original question, I look forward to it because we've seen the lives that have been changed. Because when they come to graduation, we always ask them, okay, what had an impact? What was the biggest thing that changed your life? And it's shocking. There was one guy that recently graduated, all kinds of pressure that you would think, Bob, would keep him from graduating. But he never had a single stumble. And the thing that changed his mind on the first day when he walked into court, our public defender walked up to him and he said, "Are you ready to change your life?" And it blew the guy's mind because he was expecting some old bald-headed guy in a robe being real cruel to him and punish him. Don't do this and don't do that. Instead, he meets this group that are committed to him being a success.
That's beautiful.
And believe we have the tools, of course, that we have to change every now and then based on this is a scientifically based court. It's the most studied, analyzed court in criminal court history.
Really?
Because there's so much science behind it that they keep tweaking it to make sure we're doing what's the most effective thing for treatment of addiction, because nobody has all of the answers. And so it's got to be studied and tweaked constantly to find out I hate to use that tired phrase, the latest and the greatest. And so that's what we're taught when we go to the particular sessions.
Oh, I like that. As a civilian, I read the papers or hear the news, and we'll hear of these crimes, whether somebody was intoxicated via alcohol or drugs, and they're horrendous. Some of these crimes we hear, and as a civilian, the human side of me, the cynical side is like, they need to do their time, and then I have some other choice thoughts that really aren't pleasant, and then it's like I'll have this injection. Well, guess that should have happened to you too, Bob. And then I feel like there's this little voice that whispers mercy. When you've got first time offender, second time, some of them take longer than others, and I always believe that the crime should fit. I mean, the punishment should fit the crime as written in the law. But then mercy, can change somebody. Can, not always. In fact, you have another quote in here. I'll get to that in a little bit. But the idea is that we can show mercy to somebody and change their lives. If we can affect that in a positive sense, then that person not only becomes a contributing member of society, but they too learn that they received mercy, they can pay it forward. And in a sense, we have a minority in this community of people that have been shown mercy, grace, and they pass it forward. In our case, that's one thing, but in your case, it's another. I say in Dianne, in my case, not being necessarily in the legal system, just being in the recovery system. But then having somebody from your position that could just as easily just say, "Hey, the law is written. Here's what you done, and here's what you're going to do." But then you're flipping the switch on them. In fact, you have a quote in here. What kind of model would this be? They get a DWI, you throw them in jail, they don't get any treatment or any programs, and as soon as they get out, they start drinking again. The recidivism rate is dramatically high. And you kind of answered that earlier. You want to elaborate a little bit more on that thought?
Sure. What we've done in the past has failed. If you look at the prison population, 95% of them are going to eventually get out of prison. And so what are we doing if we're not treating whatever the underlying cause is that caused them to go into prison in the first place? 65% of those in prison suffer from some type of addiction, whether it be alcohol, drugs, whatever it may be. 65% of them. They're going to go get back out of prison one of these days, and their natural tendency is to go back to where they were. And that's where we fail. And don't get me wrong, I've been totally impressed with the people of the ACC, Arkansas Department of Corrections. They are very passionate in their jobs. Arkansas needs to be proud of the people that are working in the criminal justice system regarding that, because they're looking for different programs to make them better insofar as trying to help these folks get out and do better. Sadly, we know the studies that cause them to go back to the same place because that's what they're used to. So if we can change the model at the very beginning, maybe at this stage when I see them, it could keep them from eventually going to prison. And I mean, we've had some that have failed, dropped out, unfortunately. We had to go ahead and commit them to jail. In spite of, attempt after attempt after attempt, they just don't want to give up that addiction. And so we just have to say, well, we've tried, more power to you. Hope you can find some kind of way to get around this and then commit them to jail. And you always kind of shake your head thinking, well, we lost that one. And maybe in some manner, though, I think, Dianne, you were talking about this once. The beauty of AA, which I firmly believe in, is that they may show up late to a meeting. Like in church, if somebody shows up late in church, everybody goes, oh, Bob showed up late for church. Whereas in AA, great, Bob came, because they know of a place to come.
That's right.
And that's the beauty of this particular program. Now, I cannot commit anybody to AA. That violates their constitutional rights of First Amendment. And so I can't commit anybody, but we suggest that they do a recovery group. Interesting, though, I have found through the 10 or 11 years we've been doing this, the only people that have reached out to me have been Christian-based AA, like Dianne calling me. I'd like to get involved. I'd like to see what I could do to help. And she's been a tremendous asset. She brings us brochures that when they first come in, we tell them, you can do Smart Recovery, or you can do AA, or you can do whatever. Here's the brochure that Dianne gave us. And then she's there at the meeting when they first come into court for their original meeting. Dianne is there. I'm the one that provided you the literature. And a lot of times she'll be going to the places that they've already started going to. So there's a familiar face. And more importantly, she's there to say, I've been there, I've done that. Recovery is so much better. We're not necessarily, we're inclusive, but not exclusive, like y'all said in your second podcast, which is so important and significant to somebody that we know, because of alcohol, because of whatever addiction they may be struggling in, isolates themselves. Well, isolation isn't treatment. Participation is treatment. Community is treatment. Reaching out, I'm lonely, I don't know what to do, is treatment. But, isolating, the fear is so cruel, it leads to the anxiety, depression, self-doubt, and a relapse. Whereas if we can get them involved in a community, AA, Smart Recovery, whatever, again, I believe in AA, that's going to change that dynamic from I'm all alone to, no, we're here just like you at the end of every one of your broadcasts. Very profound statement. We love you. Well, what does that mean? It means we care. It means we have compassion. It means we've been there.
Yeah.
And praise be to God to overcome that. I've got a tribe.
That's
Pat,
right.
Redbeard, all these guys who are here that love me to hold me accountable, which is significant. And that's the beauty of the Sobriety Court, because we look at it from two different lenses. One, accountability, of course. You committed a crime, it's going to be punishment. But two, treatment. That punishment doesn't need to be cruel. What if we change the concept and make it a recovery for you, so that instead of paying $3,000 or $4,000 in court fines, we use the money that you would normally be given the court and use that for your treatment, because you'll benefit from that. And if you benefit from that, that means you're not going to drink and drive. And that kind of binocular view allows us to change the concept of justice from punishment to, we can make you better. If you believe in us like we want to believe in you, we can do this. We know what you've done is wrong. There's so much more to the story than that. Why did this happen? That's what we want to know, because we care. Because all of us has fallen short. Part of it.
Totally agree. That's very, very, very good words. There's nothing like seeing, and as well as you have, Dianne and I in the recovery circle have seen such heartbreaking things. Well, when we get introduced to somebody, they're broken. They are done, and they feel sometimes their only way out is suicide, and none of us want that, And so if we tell them there's promises that will come true if they'll walk that journey with us. If you just walk this journey with us, we can promise you. And I don't make promises. I don't. Every time I hear a Hollywood movie, I promise. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. It's cheapened. It's cheapened the word. So when we use the word promise and people hang in there, we get to see lives restored, not just our own journeys, but to get to see families restored, parents get their children back, just those types of things. We get to have a have a spiritual part in that.
Right.
One of the pillars of the journey tells us that we need to do service work. And, when we trade time for dollars, well, we expect to get paid. That's the expectation. When we do something for somebody, especially if we don't tell anybody about it, kind of like Matthew 6:1, if you tell somebody about it, you already got your just reward, right?
Right. Truly, I tell you, receive. Right.
Right. But there's a spiritual, a lot of people get kind of weird when I say this word, but I don't know how else to say it. There's like a spiritual magic, when we do something for somebody and it comes back on us. It doesn't have to come back to my wallet. It comes back to my heart. My soul feels refreshed. And I firmly believe that that's what we're supposed to be here for. I mean, the Bible speaks about it all day long, but just if more people would think about not what's in it for me, but what can I do for you? And I'm not trying to steal from a former president's cliche, but I mean, Seriously, there's something to be said about doing something for somebody.
No, I agree, and I think that's was well covered by when your first episode, you were talking about that very thing, a discovery that you personally had of the fact that, and I thought this unfortunately applied to me as well, when you couldn't understand why you would do something for somebody and not get the recognition. And how humbling it was to realize, no, the better gift is to do it without them knowing. And I was sitting there thinking, Bob's my brother. That was me. If I didn't get the recognition, well, why would I want to do that? I'm not getting paid for it. I'm not getting recognized for it.
That's right.
That sad, tragic ego, fortunately, good old life handles and destroys for us some of these times, but I like that, the way you phrase that. And I thought, well, that benevolence, it would be great if we all had it. Let's just do it because we care.
What slays me, Judge, is when, so growing up, those of us that participated in sports or some kind of academia, and we got recognized for it, whether it's a certificate for the wall or a trophy or whatever. And then we strive more. And it wasn't just to get something on the wall. It's just so people could see us get it, like standing on the Olympic platforms, right? What slays me is when I see children, and I'm sure you guys have seen it, and they just, me as a child, mine. When I see a child do something for somebody to give them, to share from their toys or their candies or just hug, I've seen that, just random hugs, just, I mean, I'm slain by that, and I want to be an adult child.
That's right. It's a beautiful thing, right?
Hey, I want to ask you. There's a couple of areas. One of them is, so in our journeys, helping people that just can't seem to get it, and we're not clinicians or professionals of any sort in that arena. I mean, I'm a former soldier. Dianne, I don't even know what your former life was. I mean, were you a model or what?
My background was medical.
Oh, that's right, nurse. Yes. Okay. So maybe you do have a little area in here. How do you determine? If somebody's got a mental illness, they're standing before you, they're habitual. They can't stop. They look like normal people, but is there a mental illness involved? I mean, what happens in that case?
That would be up to our treatment team. We have 2 treatment providers on our team who will then tell us this is something much more than we can do. We need to do residential or we need to do something else. And so that's the beauty of the team, because certainly I don't know everything. And so if I hold myself out to the, you need to slap me, because that's not the truth at all. But thankfully, Dianne being a nurse as well, I get input insofar as fashioning a sentence on these treatment programs from treatment people. Judge, you're not a treatment expert, but here's what I think we should do regarding their treatment. They need to do the following things. Well, I know, well, thank you, because I would not have known that because I'm not familiar with treatment. I know some of it. I mean, by no means, again, am I an expert, but I've been educated enough to appreciate the fact that I don't know anything about it. And so I rely on the treatment coordinators to tell me, because they've met with them. They've already done treatment assessment, which is called a rant that we do to find out where they meet, because we're strictly dealing with individuals that are high risk, high needs. Diane's heard us talk about that 1,000 times. And so the treatment person then formulates an individual treatment plan for them. We have certain things that we do, Bob, so that we can kind of measure along how far they go, much like the 12 steps, which are beautiful because, measured performance gets results. How else do you know where they're doing unless you know what step they're on? That took me a while to learn, because Dianne has told me several times when I asked somebody, well, what step are you on? Oh, I don't know. I'm just started really working in that. They're not into treatment yet. It's not caught on yet. And I thought, oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And so the only way I know that they're serious about recovery, thanks to input from Dianne and the treatment people too, is, well, what step are you on? Because they go through 4 different phases, and they get easier as you go along in the phases. A lot of treatment, a lot of probation, a lot of random drug screen tests. I tell them on the front end, the random drug screen tests are not to bust you. It's to let us know where you are in your treatment. So don't be afraid of them. It's not
Trust but verify.
Trust but verify, right. More importantly, so that treatment can see too. Do we need to make an adjustment? Do we need to put them on an alcohol monitor? What's going on? So then we can make the adjustments based on what treatment recommends to the judge.
I love that. Okay. So I'm going to transition to Dianne here for a moment. I've known you for some years now, and I didn't really know about the sobriety court. You actually call it sobriety court?
We do now. We called it DWI court for about 8 years, and our public defender says, really, since everybody's co-using now marijuana with alcohol, methamphetamines with alcohol, whatever with alcohol, we now call it a sobriety court, so they don't just think, oh, this is strictly an alcohol court.
That makes sense to me. When you said it when we met earlier, I wasn't quite tracking. I mean, I thought I got it, but now I've connected the dots. So you had mentioned that, Dianne, the arguments 4 or 5 years ago, but some time ago, you reached out to the judge for information, sat in, and you obviously two have a very strong relationship. But I'm curious how your input, from your perspective, has helped in the sobriety court to help these folks in their recovery journey. So how did that? Tell me what that looks like.
Well, my input, number one, when their first meeting with us, judge, like you said, the person sits around the table with us, or sits at the table with us, and we go around the table one by one, who they are, what they do. And I love it when Steve says, I'm the prosecutor, but I'm not here to get you. I'm here to work with the team, because we're all here to see you succeed. And then, of course, the defense attorney is there to make sure that their rights are not violated. And when it comes to me, it's just that I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I have been where you are and know how you feel. I've been in front of the judge. I've been in jail. I've had my license revoked twice. And and back then they didn't have a sobriety court. And honestly, especially after my first DWI, I wouldn't have been able to succeed. But by knowing about alcoholism, it breaks my heart sometimes when these people, they just can't get it. It's just like when people come into the program and they just can't get it. But when it works, like Judge said, when they first come in, they're broken. And like you said, when they come into the program, they're broken when they come in. And as the weeks, we meet every 2 weeks. And so as the weeks go on, or the months go on that they're with us, you can see them light up. I mean, they just start having life again. You can see life in their eyes, and life. They're communicating with their kids better, with their spouses better. But as far as with me, I mean, because I deal with alcoholism, and there's no cure for alcoholism. And AA is a spiritual program. I don't push that, but I don't push AA, but I let them know it works for me. It works for me. And I've been in AA for 19 years. And had you told me 19 and a half years ago that I would be a friend with the judge and a prosecutor and a police officer and a probation officer, I'd be saying, you're out of your mind.
That's right.
I mean, I'd be like the judge said, I'd be, go in front of a judge. But Judge and I met, I was with the CPC committee for our CPC, which would be cooperation with professional community, and the PI, which is public information. I was on that committee, and we had sent out letters to several judges and just asked them just certain questions, about how their drug courts or DWI courts worked. And Judge responded. We didn't get too many responses. Judge answered via a letter, and he said that he likes to ask his participants how their fourth step is going on. And so I thought, wow, this judge knows something about AA and working the steps. And so that's why I reached out to Judge, because he got my curiosity up about DWI court, or now it's called Sobriety Court. But got my curiosity because I didn't know anything about DWI court. And so when he explained it to me about the panel and about the participants, and well, I reached out to him, and then he invited me to come visit with him, which was weird for a judge to say to me at the beginning. Well, it just because I'm not used to being friends with the judge. And so we met in the courtroom, and we both were sitting at the bench. I was up there with him, which was weird for me, because I'm used to being in front of a judge, or that's where I had been, in front of a judge, not next to a judge.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of shared my story in a general way with the judge, and then he in turn asked me if I would be interested in sitting in with panel. And I did come to the court with a court session actually going on, so I could see all the ins and outs of that. But just being there on that committee and the participants come in, and let them know that I'm an alcoholic. That's all I am. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm not a professional. All I am is a recovering alcoholic as far as me and you are concerned. And I have gotten an answer, and AA is what the answer is. And so some of them have reached out to me. I know there was one that we did have to put in jail for, I think, 2 weeks, I believe. And this is when we were first getting going. This was when we were first started going along, and I was really gung-ho on this one. But she needed to get a ride from the jail to treatment. And I said, well, I can do that. And this is during 2020 or during COVID also. So I remember I had to wear a mask and all this. And well, first, I didn't know that they actually go to Pulaski County. I just thought that they were in the Sherwood jail. I didn't know anything about any of that. So I went to the Sherwood jail, and they said, no, it's Pulaski County jail. I was like, oh, I've never been there. And so I drove out there and thinking, and I told my husband about it, and he's like, he was a little leery about me picking up a prisoner and transporting to the treatment facility. And I said, well, she's gonna sit up front, and once my car gets in drive, the doors stay locked so she can't jump out, and we're not gonna stop. We're going straight to treatment. And so when I did pick her up at jail, she came out and she said, y'all saved my life. And I knew we had, because that's what the panel had discussed before we met with her, is that if we let her go, she's going to die. And then when she came out, she gave me a big hug, and she said, y'all saved my life. And yeah.
Sorry, man. That's beautiful. All right.
And so that sent it home. And so she wanted to stop to get cigarettes and something else. It's like, nope, we're going straight to treatment. Nope.
That was the agreement.
That was the agreement.
Got to earn that right.
Yep, that's right. So I got her signed into treatment, and from what I understand, she's doing really good right now. Mm-hmm. She's doing really good.
That's great, Dianne. ACC. So I think didn't you mention that a little bit earlier?
Yeah, Arkansas Community Corrections. Yeah.
So tell me, I think you know that we go there Friday nights, right? And we could go a lot more. It's just that, as you can tell, we have a really crazy schedule. Some guys do go different nights, but I'm a Friday night guy. So tell me your affiliation with the ACC, how that works.
I'm on the Arkansas Supreme Court Committee for Specialty Courts, and was assigned by Chief Justice of the Arkansas Supreme Court to evaluate the programs in treatment courts to try to see if we could get something streamlined so everybody's basically operating on the same page. It was for the court higher than mine. I'm district court, the lowest court in Arkansas, but I was assigned to do it for the circuit courts where they actually send people to prison. The ACC runs their treatment program, and so statewide. And so I had to step in and make an evaluation of that to determine if that was, the proper procedure, if everybody was operating on the same page. And that's where I found the professionalism and enthusiasm the folks at the ACC have. They were already 2 steps ahead of me when I started interviewing them. They already had a program that they were trying. I was just remarkable. I was so impressed. So I reported back to our Chief Justice, Your Honor, they already have a new program coming in. They're already excited about it. It seems to have, I don't remember what the percentage was, but they're just starting it out, and it looks like it's going to be a great success for circuit court people that are going to sobriety court. was wonderful.
Oh.
So, but they were so compassionate, but also passionate about trying to get this into the ACC, the Department of Corrections. So while these guys are there, they're getting a very graduated, monitored, scaled treatment program based on the different books that they were working. Oh, it was great.
Well, I am learning more and more about the system. We started going there, I don't know how long ago it was. There was a handful of guys that were, because it's an optional thing, it's Friday night.
Right.
And a lot of these, the inmates are like, hey, it's movie night. Last thing we're going to do is go sit with this recovery group. So it was a handful of guys, and now we get an average between 50 and 60 guys that show up.
That's amazing.
And
That's
it's
great.
huge. And we started, when we first went in, you can only tell your story so many times, right? And then, I go with this tribe of guys that, there's a bunch of us that hang out together. And one of them had this epiphany, basically, why are we doing all the talking in the first place? We want them to talk. And it was like a caveman seeing fire for the first time. It was so obvious. Like, yeah. So we started a step study. And one of the things that they allow us to, through the Corrections Committee with Alcoholics Anonymous, they provide us funds to give what we call the big book to the inmates. But the step study really is, it's in my office, is a different book altogether. But the big book, it is the Bible of recovery, right? The first 164 pages. After that are anecdotal stories. So we have been, and they're showing up, bringing their books. And you can tell the ones that I'm not going to say that, I got 60 guys that want to stampede us with their recovery, but there are a lot of guys there that are following us in a book, they're reading, they're connecting the dots, they're getting it. And I get really excited when I see, because we'll throw out, little lines there, and we use the word plan of action. When you get out of here, what are you going to do? And of course, some of them already have mandated stuff they have to do. Well, okay, that's what you have to do, but what is it you want to do? And so they're bringing us their plan of action, and the guys, there's like 10 of us that go in, we'll look at their plans of action, make recommendations, what have you. Well, one of them did a show with us, and his story is, I wish I could tell you off the top of my head what episode it was. I don't know if it was 3 or 4. It was Cody's story.
Cody's story. Oh, it's an amazing story.
That was a drop the mic because I really didn't know the guy. And in fact, to be fair, he had already finished the program when we started. So even though we still work with some of these fellas, a lot of these guys, when they get out and they go to some of these transition houses and what have you, work with them. That fella I actually met after. Now he goes in with us now. He's been out over 2 years. He got his waiver. He goes in. I was just with him this week. And, the guys are, I just see these faces of, like, okay, so what do they think we're gurus or something, like we're something special. And we tell them we're just men. We're just like you guys. The only difference is we're leaving tonight. You're not, Right. But when Cody talks, it's like, well, what do you got to offer? He goes, well, first of all, I spent my time here, and that just gets their attention. And if you work the program, the promises come true. It's so beautiful to see, right? And so I digressed a little bit. I apologize, but I just was curious what your involvement was with the ACC, because we're going to be doing a show with the chaplain, by the way.
Oh, good.
I'm really excited about that. His heart is on fire for these guys. And he's got, what do you call it, boundaries? And
boundaries,
he sticks by those. Yeah. He sticks by those, and I appreciate it because I can get it. Sometimes I forget. These guys are inmates. They're there for a reason. They're not your friends. You can treat them with dignity and respect, but you're not building a relationship with them until they get out. So, Bob, be reminded of that, because it's too easy to start, just treating them like, we're getting ready to go to a movie together or something, and you're not, so I have to be reminded of that. You had said when you shared with us earlier, and I think it was just funny, and I if you're okay sharing it, you wanted to observe yourself an open meeting of AA.
Oh, yes, right.
And so you did that, but then there was a subsequent story attached to that. Can you share that with us?
As Dianne was saying, I keep a chair up on the bench so people can come up and hear. And I get a lot of great ideas from them regarding sentencing or so, or somebody like Dianne will come in and say, here's how I can help you. Well, I was sitting up there one day and I was sentencing somebody to AA meetings, and the guy next to me was really active in AA at the time. This was years ago. We just started the court. And he said, have you ever gone to an AA meeting? I said, no. And he said, would you like to go? I said, sure, I'd be glad to. So anyway, I go and was enthralled. I thoroughly enjoyed it because, as we know from people that are in our court, when they finally make the meetings, they're stunned by how similar the stories are to their own. Which brings back the idea isolation is the worst thing. You don't understand. Everybody is struggling in some manner. A lot of people are struggling with the same issue you are, and they belong to a group. Nobody wants to join, but everybody loves to belong to this particular group. And it's profound, the impact. Well, I was sitting there listening and thinking, oh, this is great. This is great. And this lady was there, and she waved at me. I thought, oh, great. Well, I'll go home that evening. And I was sharing with my wife. I said, I attended an AA group today. She goes, what? I said, yeah, I went to an AA meeting. She said, what? What are you talking about? You don't have a issue? I said, no. One of the guys came up sitting from court with me, sat next to me, invited me, so I thought I'd go. Have you lost your mind? What do you mean? Well, people are going to thank you. I said, no, they won't. It's just, did you introduce yourself? No. Oh, thank God. Thank God. I said, well, no, you don't introduce yourself while you're there, And she said, well, and she was curious too. And so she was asking me all about it. She said, well, what's going to happen in church? Everybody knows you're in AA. And I said, no, that won't be it. It's just, well, sure enough, that Sunday we were in church, and the lady I waved at walked by me and winked at me, put her finger over her mouth like, I'm not going to say anything. We've got it. And I said, oh, she was there. And she said, I told you, somebody's going to see you, But anyway, my wife's very supportive of it. She's a tremendous help to me in this regard. But yeah, that was pretty funny.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I did laugh the second time, so it was good. One of our pillars is anonymity. A lot of folks have no problems, breaking their anonymity. They'll introduce themselves by their first or last name. They'll stand on a mountaintop and shout it out. But that kind of goes against the principles of the program. If they want to go do that, I just like, that's awesome. But, remember what you hear here, what you say here stays here, but carry the message.
Sure.
That's the principle. So, but I applaud you for, actually checking it out. I have a small anecdotal, but there was a lady I had never seen her before. And a dignity and respect, everybody's got a story, and if they're broken. So this was 1,000 years ago. This happened to me. I went up and I was doing everything that you should do with a newcomer, loving on them, whatever. And I learned to ask questions. Should have asked questions earlier, like, so what brings you here? She was a college student that was getting her degree in her master's in therapy. And one of the requirements were to go to an open meeting and observe. So I'm thinking, well,
yeah,
ask questions first. Okay, so
what were you going to say, Dianne?
One thing that I told Judge was, and this was very true, is I wanted to be on the panel also because I never saw or I never knew a sober alcoholic before I got into AA. I mean, you're an alcoholic, you drink. And so I never knew a sober alcoholic. And so when I'm on the panel, it's like I'm a normal person. I don't have devil's ears or anything like that. I'm normal. I'm an alcoholic. I have the disease of alcoholism. But to me, I don't know. I think that, if they're an alcoholic and they don't know anything about sobriety because all their friends drink, their family drinks, and they don't know anyone out there, that is a sober alcoholic. What is a sober alcoholic, I mean, I didn't know that. I didn't know that word until I got into the program because you're either a recovering alcoholic or you're an active alcoholic. Mm-hmm. And I'm in recovery. So that was important to me, that just for an alcoholic that's in the throes of alcoholism sees a normal human being that's also an alcoholic. It kind of gives them maybe the twinge of maybe I'll go to that meeting. And like Joe says, I've seen several of them at meetings, and it's confidential. The court is, but I'll pat them on the back, say, "Hey, it's great to see you." I mean, just to let them know that I recognize them. I'm glad they're there, and I've met some really good friends that have continued. One's 4 years. She's coming up on 4 years sober.
Oh, okay.
And I saw her in the throes of alcoholism. and now she's fantastic. So, it's just, I don't know. I think that was important to me because I never knew what a sober alcoholic looked like until I got into recovery.
Well, Dianne, I'm trying to visualize this because you guys have shared what it looks like. So I've got a table sitting there. I have, of course, the judge. I got you're a peer representative, right? I've got a couple of caseworkers. I have the prosecutor, and then there's me. And I before anybody starts talking, I'm already intimidated because I am in a court of law and I'm surrounded by these people. So that's intimidating enough. But then to hear, are you ready to change your life? Is that what the...
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then you're, of course I'm wondering, who are you? Why are you here? And then you say, well, I'm an alcoholic, haven't had a drink in 19 years, and, I care, and that's why I'm here.
You can do it.
Yeah, right.
As somebody that's never, ever heard that before, I could see where that could be a very important seed. Because, it's no secret. There is a stigma behind, we were growing up, everybody had an Uncle Joe, Uncle Joe's, he's a drunk, he's Otis, he's going to be in the Slammer this weekend with his own key. We not every family has that, but a lot of families do. We, of course, never thought we'd grow up and become, Otis,
right.
But we knew when we did get it, all the stigma that was around it because we'd already heard the gossip from other people about other people. And so it's, now we're trying to hide it. And it's so hard to come out. Like, who do I tell? Because these people all, have this idea that an alcoholic's a loser. They're done. They're a waste. I don't want to be a loser. I don't want to be a waste. I want help. But who do I go to? So then I don't quit. I get in trouble. I end up in court. I'm sitting there in the Knights of the Round Table and I'm hearing the stuff that you guys are doing. And I'm like, finally, somebody hears me. God bless you guys. That's wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah, the very first AA meeting that I went to, I walked in. I was scared, just like you're scared. What are you going to get into? This is something new. I've been drinking all my life, and this is something new. And I had been sober for about 3 days, and but when I walked into that room, I felt like I was at home. It was just like, these people know me. And I knew them because I listened to their stories, and it was just like, yeah, and they went around the room at that particular meeting and they gave their sobriety dates, and I was just like, ooh, 3 days.
Yeah.
But they just clap and welcome here. And that's what's so wonderful about the groups that we go to, the AA meetings is the newcomer is the most important person in the room.
That's right.
And we got to surround them with love because they don't love themselves anymore.
That's right.
We've been there. So
we call ourselves the tribe, and it's not something we invented. Obviously, on page 336 of the big book, the anecdotal stories in the back of the big book, this lady author talks about how she just kind of ruined her life, and she went from rags to riches to back to rags. And she ends up in a room of Alcoholics Anonymous, and she said, I found my tribe. And so we just kind of adopted the word, and we get it. So when we get together in our men's groups, I'm sure you ladies have the same thing. There's no difference up to gender. We've got guys in there that have been around a long time and guys that are just fledgling. Well, one of them just got out of ACC, and nobody would have known it because I don't say, hey, we got a guy just got out of prison that's coming to hang out with our group.
Right.
They just kind of show up and everybody treats everybody in the same playing field until somebody will, in that case, that individual says, he says at the end, I appreciate you guys treating me with respect. He's covered with skinhead Nazi tattoos. He's renounced all that, but he still has it. And he says, thanks guys for treating me like a human being. I'm just not used to this. This is great. And they're like, well, why wouldn't we? Because we don't get the stigma thing because we're in it. Right. It's kind of a beautiful thing. And I ask you, Judge, I'm actually going to save your quote here for the show, but isolation isn't treatment. Participation is treatment. It's going to be in the show notes there. Have you learned any quotes from our AA thing? Because we got tons of quotes and cliches. Have you heard any of them that you thought, yeah, I like that. I'm going to hold on to that myself.
Oh, I use a lot of them. Dianne weekly sends me what I call Dianne's missives. And I read them and I highlight the ones I like, but then I keep them. and I'll use them in court that Tuesday or the next Tuesday. I'm sorry, and it's always interesting. I can always tell she knows I'm talking about one of them because she'll smile. I'll be talking to somebody, and there was one reference to little children biting at her ankles. And I made that comment. And I looked at her, and she wasn't looking at me, but she started smiling. I was thinking, yeah, that's one of your missives. And so, yeah, I love that. But a lot of the cliches I'll write down so that I can use them because they're so true. And some of the cliches that I've heard on your podcasts, I've listened to most of them, the same things. And I think they're cliches, but they're not. They mean so much more than that because that's why they've lasted. Because there's truth. There's a lot of truth. And so, anyway, yeah, as many of them I can remember, but most of them I write down after reading Diane's missives, and I'll use them, when I'm talking to somebody.
Yeah, I don't have a single ink spot on my body because I'm a chicken. Let's just make that clear.
Well, I love the one you said, God doesn't waste a hurt. That was profound. I thought, that's really good. I've got to remember that one,
Yeah. Of course, I stole everything. I've never made up anything, but I steal them all.
All of us do.
But there's so much in that, coming into the recovery, and I've learned stuff that I share with other people. They've been beaten down. You don't understand. And we hear that all the time. Like, yeah, okay. And we just listen to them. Try to combat them or anything. They're living their own worst horror story right now, and they don't get that. And they're still in the me syndrome. People, it's all about me right now. You don't know how hurting I am, and it is all about you. Like Dianne, you said earlier, they're the most important person in the room. We want them to throw up that garbage. And then later on, we'll start slipping little cliches at them, like, time heals wounds,
right.
And God heals scars.
Right.
So you just hang in there, ride that wave, and they do. They start, and it's refreshing when we start hearing, they come around for a few days, maybe nothing, maybe 30 days, nothing, maybe about 90 days or something, they'll throw out a cliche, and you're like, they're getting it.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
I want to respect your time. You've already been here longer than I thought you would be, so I apologize for that, but thank you so much for entertaining our show today. As we come to a close, Dianne, do you have any closing thoughts that you'd like to share?
Closing thoughts. Well, I really hope that the sobriety court continues, and I do know that in the phases that they go to, they're not required to go to as many meetings as from the beginning. But my hope is at the beginning, when they have to go to so many meetings, that because and this is something that we stress in the court, is to get a sponsor. Because like Judge says, when he'll ask them about a step that they're working on, and I kind of, and it's like they don't have a sponsor.
Well, Dianne, you say sponsor, so what does that cost?
Sponsorship is free.
Well, what does it mean?
We do it for free, for fun.
Okay, so fun. What does that mean to get a sponsor?
It's my sponsor. I have a sponsor who has a sponsor. I have sponsees. And a sponsor is just someone, number one, who has worked the steps, that is a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, has worked the steps with a sponsor. And we don't graduate from this program. We have 12 steps, and it's not like high school. We don't work the steps and then graduate. Like we graduate but I don't want them to graduate because I want them to continue doing what you got to do. Because in working the steps, we apply those in our daily living, and we have to. Okay, back with the sponsor. If you have something going on in your head that you really need to talk to, the sponsor's there. If I've got something right now, actually, that I call my sponsor. I blurt out to her what's on my mind, and she'll listen to me, and then she'll say, okay, you need to pray about it. And then she'll give me such suggestions of write things down, you say anything. And we're just there to help the other alcoholic. We're just there. We're on the even plane. I'm not better than you. No, we're not that. We're both sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous, but we're helping one another. And as you get more time in sobriety, you do. I mean, the sponsorship relationship becomes a friendship. So I'm there to help her too. If anything that she's going through, she can call me, because her sponsor lives out of state. So, and I know that, but I mean, she can call her still, but I'm there for her. So sponsorship starts out with helping a newcomer, learning how to live. And you learn how to live with steps. Working the steps, number one, you get sober, and number two, you form a relationship with a God of your own understanding. And you can't do that without a sponsor. You mentioned the 12 and 12, or the step study. That's the 12 and 12. I love the 12 and 12 meetings because it dives down into the steps deeper, and I work with a sponsee through the 12 and 12 because the big book, we go through the steps, but the 12 and 12 irons all those nuances. I mean, it explains the steps. It explains the steps to where you can understand how to apply a certain step into whatever you're whatever you're going through in life. And but sponsorship is very important. I mean, it's accountability, and they'll keep you accountable.
You had mentioned the sponsor relationship becoming a friendship. So some time ago, in fact, Thursday, I have a lunch with my sponsor. And some time ago, we were out to lunch, and he said, Bob, who's sponsoring who here? Because we had become so close in our friendship.
Well, it's funny. I've got a sponsee that I remember when she asked me to sponsor her. She's a doctor, she's a psychiatrist, and she heard my story. And then after she heard my story, she came up to me and asked me if I would be her sponsor. And my inside, I said, "Oh, she's a doctor. I mean, she's got so much knowledge, and she's so much smarter than me, book smart and all this. And then the only thing I have to do to be her sponsor is be a recovering alcoholic, one alcoholic sharing with another alcoholic. And I do that. She'll call me, and I do have a lot of questions for her medically when she calls me now. She's helped me out with a lot of different questions.
I'm going to put a bug in your head. Ask her if she'll do a show with us. I would love to have somebody in a mental capacity as a practicing professional.
She doesn't live here.
I don't care. We can Bluetooth her in.
Okay.
I did a show last week with a lady that was that's Native Alaskan and Indian, and did a show with her, and it was it's funny. Now, to be fair, I didn't Bluetooth her in from Alaska, but you'll have to hear the show to hear where she came from.
Right. Okay. I know that she knows that we were doing this podcast, so she did say, "Well, let me know how it goes." So.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Well, we hope the show will be out in the next 10 to 14 days. So that's our goal. Judge, I meant to ask you, so, we have a resource page that's fledgling. The whole show's fledgling. We're growing. So as folks send us resources, I vet them, I put them out there. But also people can reach us through two sources. Either they can hit the message board on shoutoutfromthepit.com, or they can email us at team at shoutoutfromthepit.com. And there's only two of us, Redbeard and myself, and both of us have, full-time engagements. So if somewhere in the nation there is a judge, one in your capacity, that wants to know more about this program and just like to have a chat, and can that person reach out to us on the message board and I forward it to you?
I would be happy to.
Okay. All right, so if you know somebody out there, folks, that's in the courtroom business and you want more about this and you'd like to speak to the judge, respectfully, just hit us up either on the message board at shoutoutfromthepit.com or email me at team@shoutoutfromthepit.com. There's also a phone number there. You'll see it on the website. I don't answer it. It's a voicemail, but feel free to leave a message in. I guarantee you I'll get back to you. Also on that note, we've got a forthcoming show we're going to be dedicating to mothers. So if you will call that phone number and give a shout out to your mom, your grandma, your nana, or somebody that's been incredibly encouraging in your recovery life. Remember, we don't talk about recovery just in the form of illicits or alcohol. It's many other things, anxieties, depressions, insecurities, whatever. And if there's somebody there that's really met that bill, that's in your mama class, please leave a shout out. Just simply say, shout out, this is whoever your name is and what you feel about your mom. And we'll do a collage and post that on the air here in the near future. So I'm going to pass this last thought opportunity to you, Judge. And I can't express enough how blessed and grateful I am that you came on the show. Do you have any closing thoughts you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, I certainly appreciate this format, which I wholeheartedly support. I was so impressed with what you said earlier, that the tribe, Pat, I guess, Tony, Redbeard, Cody as well, I'm not all sure, go to the ACC and give back in that regard. And insofar as taking it from a further aspect of not only, sharing your testimony, but also holding these guys accountable to develop a plan what they're going to do when they get out. Mm-hmm. That is so profound because that will ensure they don't go back to prison. So I applaud you. I applaud your tribe. I applaud the testimonies that you've shared so much. So keep up the good work. It's been an honor to be here today, to meet you, Bob, and of course, always to be with Dianne. And so just thank you for this outreach, and thank you for reminding people, please reach out. You are not alone. You're not the only one struggling with this issue. There are so many people that are out there who want to help you. So thank you. Praise God to y'all.
Oh, amen. Well, you took some of my formal lines, so I don't have to use those. Thank you. But yes, I will say them because the judge is right, folks. You are not alone. I don't care what you're going through in life. You are not alone. There are resources for you. And if you don't have any and you don't know what to do, reach out to us and we will do what we can to help you. And it wouldn't be the old Rucker if I didn't say, if nobody's told you they love you today, we love you. So God bless you. Have an outstanding recovery day. Peace out.